listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast, episode 30.
The meaning of life that I have is to take care of Jose because I know what makes Jose happy and I make Jose suffer. And how do I know that's because I am Jose? And when I step into my own dream, into my own thinking or dreaming or consciousness, if I see something that is not giving me pleasure, it's all about discipline, and honesty that this is doing this to me and I will not support this any longer.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
Don Jose Ruiz is dedicating his life to sharing the ancient Toltec wisdom by translating it into practical everyday life concepts that promote transformation through truth, love, and common sense. Don Jose teaches and lectures globally. He also collaborated with his father, Don Miguel Ruiz, on the Fifth Agreement, a book that offers a fresh perspective on the Four Agreements and a powerful new agreement for transforming our lives into our own personal heaven. He is also the author of Ripples of Wisdom and my good friend, the Rattlesnake. It's my pleasure to welcome Don Jose to the show today.
Hello, Angie. It's very pleasure to be here with you.
Nice to see you. Where are you recording from today?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Oh, me too. Me too. We're so lucky to be here in this beautiful city.
Oh, yes, very blessed.
So tell me a little bit about what you have going on these days. You have such an interesting bio.
Well, these days, we just released this past October a kind of a biography book of my life called My Good Friend the Rattlesnake, Stories of Lost Truth and Transformation. And we've been sharing this information around the country, and it's very beautiful for me to share these stories of my life because it's like reliving it and really putting it to rest. So that's one of the things that I'm going right now. But I'm very excited to be returning to Encinitas because it's kind of a hometown where we made the book, The Fifth Agreement. So this year we're gonna be in Encinitas sharing our love.
And what are you going to be doing in Encinitas?
It's called Angel Training. It's really called, the word angel means messenger to us Toltecs. So it's messenger training. So it's after the Toltec graduation. What does one do? Well, it just begins working with oneself, begins working with its tools. And when one begins training itself, it's one of the most beautiful things to wake up because you're guided by your own inspiration. And this is what we're going to be offering in Encinitas.
And how would somebody find out more details about that?
You can find more details on miguelruiz.com under the events calendar.
And is it, where are you holding these trainings and how often are they?
It's going to be every month in the Village Gate Collective Center. It's one street away from Swami Yogananda's ashram.
I see. And would someone be training with you for a whole year or coming to just events that they chose?
Yes, just events that they chose because one thing that we're sharing is just, open heart. And when every weekend will be different because it's always guided by inspiration. Not by a guideline.
I see. Great. Well, we'll put some information about that in our show notes so that folks interested in looking into that training can link right to your website from there. So you're good friends with the rattlesnake?
Oh, yes, very much so. I used to live in the mountains in Alpine. And then one day I was observing one of the rattlesnakes. And I said, oh, my God, we humans, we are a lot like the rattlesnake. And in the point of view I refer about this is when the rattlesnake is young, is when it's more dangerous in all its life because it cannot control its poison. And I remember being a young human, I couldn't control my emotional poison. And not be able to control my emotional poison led me to a bunch of, decisions that I wouldn't want to remake, but I learned from them. But later, as the rattlesnake matures, it learns how to control its poison. And then I wonder, okay, when we grow up as humans, is that we don't forget all those reactions. No, we have the memory of them, and of course they can trigger us to react. But one thing we do is then we learn to control their emotional negativity. And when we control the negative emotion, then we control, we're at service to the love of our life, which is ourselves. That's why one of the beautiful things that I really learned from the rattlesnake is really to let go of our stories because I one day imagine if I was a rattlesnake and they see me coming, they will see a big mountain of dead skins coming because I want to let go of my stories. But rattlesnake, when it lets go of its skin, it really completely lets go. And one day I was imagining that I was having this conversation with somebody who's going through a heartbreak, and this person, starts telling stories about this recent heartbreak, and I couldn't stand, I stand up and get my dead skin number 67 and say the dead skin of Rattlesnake, of love, heartbreak, and I bring that to talk about that, not even listening to the person who's having a recent heartbreak anymore, but it's like telling our stories again and again, and this is what happens in our life. We get all negativity, and we used to hurt ourselves with it. It's like the rattlesnake biting itself with its own poison. And when one day we wake up from that, it's because we have no respect. We learned to respect the love of our life. And this is why the rattlesnake is my good friend.
I love that. Very rich. So what is it like to grow up as the son of Don Miguel Ruiz?
Well, it was very interesting because my father grew up with the power of intent, meaning that he was always impeccable with his word, and when he put an intent to do something, he's going to do it. And if one day I came to him with some problems that I have or complaining that I don't want to do this, he takes actions. So later in my life, I really had to have awareness that whatever I'm going to bring to my father, any conversation, is going to take action and really, change my life completely. And in one point of all, it's like very grateful, to have his reflection, because at one point in my life, I began rebelling, listening to the wrong crowd, hanging with the wrong crowd. And I pretended I didn't listen to my father or my mother. But at one point, when I was going through dark times, their voice resonated, their voice spoke to my heart, and I really know, that they saved my life with all those good advices. So it was very beautiful to, very blessed to have my father as a teacher and a guide, but especially as a father, as he used to say to us, I am your father, I'm not your friend. So I don't care if you have a reaction toward me, because if I don't educate you, someone else will. And, this is one of the beautiful things that he educated us with love and common sense. Even though I went through a different direction because of my resistance, but his love and guidance returned me back to the center.
Would you consider him your friend today?
Yes, absolutely. It's just unconditional love. That's what a true friend it is. When someone has unconditional love for you and to respect you with the mistakes that you make and always be supportive. And, Father always did that with me. And one beautiful thing that he gave to me when I was 16 years old was a gift. And in that time, I thought it was the new Nintendo game because they were pretty big back in the day. But I opened it, and it was no Nintendo game. It was a picture of himself, very serious. And I asked him, why do you give me this gift? And he goes, because whenever you do something wrong or negative, I don't have to know. You just by looking at this picture, you will know. And of course, the next day I do something negative in school or in the neighborhood, and I see his picture and I have to turn it around. And I did that a few times. Even my friends did that. Hey, your father's looking at me weird. Can we turn the picture around? So like 12 years later, it dawned on me the gift that he really gave to me. And it was, clear consciousness. Because that face became my face and I couldn't lie to myself anymore. And when we have clear consciousness, that's the biggest step to personal freedom. Because we are free from ourselves. Because we have nothing to judge ourselves with, nothing to put ourselves down. And we begin to accept life. So my father, a big friend, a big love, big unconditional love, and he reflected this to myself. So I'm forever grateful. This is why I go teaching, sharing what he teach to me and my family teach to me, because it's just about gratitude. To every time one gives to share this information or share the heart, it's like receiving it 10 times full. And this is what it's all about, gratitude, and to remind ourselves, that we are the love of our life. This is what my father, friend, teacher taught me.
Do you have children of your own?
No, not yet.
And when you do, someday will you be putting a picture of yourself in their dorm room?
Well, I will do my best.
Right.
But definitely. But I would definitely give it to my nephews.
Right. That's a great story. Great story. In your bio, you also talk about that a time in your life when you lost your eyesight.
Yes, because when I was growing up, I started doing some hard drugs. And when I stopped using them, my nervous system, became affected. So one day I went to get a root canal with a dentist, and the medicine that makes you numb hit a nerve that was behind my eyes and in front of my brain, and that began to swell. And at one point it kind of hurt to look from one side to the other side, but thank God to the gift and magic of medicine, that they find what was wrong, they stopped the swelling, and it took a little time to get my eyesight back. But I have to tell you this, Angie, that when I lost my eyesight, I knew that I was blind before, because when I couldn't see, I got connected to my body, to my heart, to the message that goes on, the blood passing the information, the energy, the vibration inside the body, and especially the dreams, because when we dream, we are in contact with our memory. So in my memories, I could see clearly. So I began dreaming lucid, and knowing that I was just, present. And it's one of the beautiful gifts that I really took from that, because when I got my eyesight back, there was a pause. But the beautiful thing was then I look into the mirror when I got my eyesight back, and I look at the reflection. I was looking at me, and I imagined that I never looked at that reflection before. But I see the loyalness, the love from the eyes that are looking at me. No matter if I do something negative or positive, it will always follow me. So in that moment, I make the decision, to be loyal to this reflection. And this is where my Toltec training really began. Because in the Toltec training, there's nothing to learn, but it's to unlearn what takes your inspiration away, because the word Toltec means artist. So the moment that I was looking myself in the mirror, imagining that I've never seen this reflection before, but I'm going to become loyal to this reflection, it's because I'm going to begin to unlearn things that I used to hurt myself. And that was the beginning. I thought I was blind before, but no. When I lost my eyesight, I knew I was blind. And it was time to, get my eyesight back by, reconnecting to loving myself.
Mm. And do you think that was a very big part of your path? Do you think it was a purposeful thing to push you in the direction of the work that you do today?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely, because, meditation is taught to be with oneself. And in that moment, I used to meditate for a long time, 8 hours a day, but I was still running away. But when I lost my eyesight, I began feeling the service that I had for my body. And even though I went against it, a few times later after that, but I knew what I was doing now. So, when you have awareness that you are here to take care of the love of your life, this is some beautiful magic that begins. So right now I can honestly say, that the purpose of my life, the meaning of my life is to take care of Jose, because I know what makes Jose happy, and I know what makes Jose suffer. And how do I know this information? Is because I am Jose. And having awareness and honesty of how one lives really, can change your life. And this is one of the things that I was looking at when I was blind, that I really look at. I am the one who's co-creating with life, and I'm the narrator of this story. So it's time to tell a beautiful story and stop looking for those negative stories that paralyze me. It's like one day my father said to me, the problem it is, my son, is that you're addicted to suffering. And of course, my ego stood up. I'm not addicted to suffering, but then I started defending. And when I know I was defending emotionally, I know, okay, there's something going on here. And being honest, when I lost my eyesight, I knew I was completely honest with the emotions that I felt. If I was declining or debating or resisting the emotions that I felt, I was not in the truth. But the moment that I embraced my emotions, I know I was in the truth. And it's not in words of truth. It's in a state of knowing, of emotionally knowing. That's when I know that I can talk to the divine, and everybody can. And it's not through English or Spanish, but it's through really listening to our emotions. Because when we listen to our emotions, it's our body communicating with us. And our body, is the divine. So when we begin getting the stories that we used to hurt ourselves with, and no longer using that addiction to suffer, that habit to do it, we break the spell and we wake up. And now we have the memory, and of course we have the invitation to go where we once were. But having awareness and compassion for the love of our life, knowing that we're doing it for this beautiful, beautiful divine creature, everything begins to change. And this is how I imagine when a parent has his children, he will do anything for his children when he has complete awareness, and the parent gathers awareness as long as he has the child, because he begins to learn. And one of the beautiful things is when we leave a dream behind, a new dream has to be born. And that new dream is like a baby, we take care of it. And every mother knows that having the baby, birthing the baby is just the beginning of this beautiful action.
Very much so. Very much so. So you mentioned a few times, the divine and the divine spirit. What are your spiritual beliefs?
Well, my spiritual belief, it is just to respect life. When I was a kid, I was blessed that I got touched by many different cultures and religions and belief systems. And I had my altar with different, saints, different religious characters, different pictures, different power objects from different tribes. And one day my friend came and says, Jose, you're contradicting yourself because this doesn't agree with this. And, said, it doesn't matter about that, because behind the words, you feel the energy, the vibration of unity. And this is what it's all about. So I'm very blessed that I got touched by the Toltec tradition, the Inca tradition, the Maya tradition, the Hindu tradition, and the Catholic tradition. That was all around me. But around all of that message that they give in words, I know the energy behind that, it's the energy that's within us. And every time we speak up, we can find the connection between any divine master, any divine teaching, because we know that's all about common sense. And when we begin respecting, the law of our life, we can connect the dots. So it was very beautiful growing up with this information, because at the time I took it, this is for sure, this is the real thing, this is the real truth. And then I met a new culture and I go, okay, this is the real truth, this is the real. But then I said, they're all speaking the real truth. The moment that I lock myself to one thing is because I'm putting myself in a bubble. So in one point, I knew that divinity is everywhere, and even not in a religious point of view, it could be from a person that you are kind of discriminating or have fear in your head, you want to approach a person, but when you approach this person, he just talks, things that you need to hear. Or when you talk to a person who has Alzheimer's, like my grandmother, sometimes I speak to her and she's like real connected, say things, that I just need to hear. So it's about being open. The beautiful things that I learn about divinity. You never know where you're going to get a message. Like Mama Forrest Gump says, your life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. But if you're open to it, you can taste anything. And you can totally feel in the time of darkness, in the time when we're down. And you can hear your own prayer, and they say when you pray, the angel will listen. When one day, a few times I was down and I was praying and, if they said the angel was listening, I was noticing that I was listening to my own prayer, to my own intent. And when I was beginning to listen to that, I could totally feel, we all have a connection to the divine. But the important thing is that we have to respect it, to respect that it is our own, because someone can tell us what divinity is outside, but it's going to be completely different to us. Like one of my friends asked me, would you be my spiritual guide, my spiritual teacher, Jose? And I responded with respect, no, my friend. And he goes, why not? Am I not worthy? No, it's not about that. It's because if I'm your spiritual teacher, your spiritual guide, I'm going to teach you to be me. And you have to learn how to be you, because this is the way that we're going to share. But it all happens because we listen to the divine inside of us. And it's completely about respect. Like I said earlier, the meaning of life that I have is to take care of Jose, because I know what makes Jose happy and I make Jose suffer. And how do I know? That's because I am Jose. And when I step into my own dream, into my own thinking or dreaming or consciousness, if I see something that is not giving me pleasure, a story or a message that is not giving me pleasure that I'm supporting, it's all about discipline, and honesty, that this is doing this to me and I will not support this any longer. And this will completely change. But it's all about listening to your heart, because that's what is giving you the divinity to listen to yourself.
Do you also believe that there's something bigger than you, that there's whatever word you want to use, that there's God, the universe, something larger that's helping direct your life?
Oh, absolutely. I call this energy the boss, because, that's the boss right there.
The boss. I love that.
We cannot debate his creation or her creation, it's just the boss. And sometimes, we open our hearts and we get ideas. And when we have these ideas, we apply them. And we apply them, we're listening to the boss, we're listening to divinity, and we're a part of contributing to life. And sometimes we hear these thoughts, we have these ideas, but we don't take action about them. And then we walk like 6 months into the city, and then in the window we see some idea that we had, like someone else did it. And it's not because to say I did it, no, it's because when we have an idea to create, that's why in the Toltec we call ourselves artists, because, we have ideas all the time. The important thing is to manifest them. And, and this is getting given to us by the boss, the doctor of doctors. The healers always say, this energy gives us the energy to heal. But most beautifully is that we know that all this energy is our connection, It's like Father always says, I'm not afraid to die, because we don't die. We just embrace to another source of life. The spirit that we are doesn't really die. We just embrace. We go back to the source, and in the old traditions, we say that the source is the sun. Is the one that gives energy and light. And, this is where we really come from. We're children from the sun. And we grew up to have this consciousness. So at one point in our life, we wake up knowing, that Divine Mother, Divine Father forgive the children all the same, no matter what horrible things they do or what positive things they do. So why cannot we think like Mother and Father? And, like the boss, and forgive all our brothers and sisters no matter what they do. we forgive them. And then one of my friends said to me, Jose, I cannot do that. I cannot forgive this in 1 year or in 10 years because I don't know what I'm forgiving. And I said, yes, brother, you know what you're forgiving. You're forgiving the human addiction to suffering. Because when people scream at people, it's because they feel hurt. And they're just saying that they're hurt. But the moment that we don't take them personally, we can totally understand the divine within us. Because how we treat ourselves is how we treat the divine, the boss. How we treat others is how we treat the boss. So when we wake up, we would take that illusion and put it aside. And it's all based on judgment. We judge ourselves, we judge others, but all that judgment is just nothing but an illusion because it exists before we're born, it exists while we're alive, and it will exist after we die. So all that is just a man-made creation that has nothing to do, with the important thing that we are. And what we are is the divine source. There's no separation between anything. That's why when we come to this point of respect, we can respect any culture, any religion, any way of life, any plant, any tree, because we know that we're grateful to be alive. And this is the most beautiful thing, to look at our own hands, and we know that we have an intent to look at our own hands, that we have an intent to do goodness. It begins to change everything. That's why I feel that divinity is all around us. We just have to listen by getting it out of our own way.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously you believe in synchronistic events?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's no accident when we're put together. And sometimes in life, we're put together with these persons, and then we talk, like for 10 minutes, and we think we know this person for a long time in our life. The truth it is because that person is true with themselves, and, we are true with ourselves. So when we get together, it's because we're here to inspire one another to create whatever we're going to need to create. And we never will say, we're not supposed to be here. No, we're there wherever we're at. So we're going to make the best out of it. But I really do believe in synchronicity. And sometimes I really take a step further, and I really believe, that this life is already dreamt. That's why I can explain deja vu, an event where we dream about it before it happens. Because when it happens, and we know, okay, we're dreaming. We can change any direction we want. But the important thing is that we can enjoy our life. That's why we say we don't like our life, we don't like our creation. We can completely change it. Because the only one who makes this like a Groundhog Day is the individual who doesn't want to leave the addiction of suffering, who just wants to be more comfortable in a thing they're used to, afraid of the unknown. That's why when one wakes up and says, I want to change my life. And who's the biggest tyrant that stops me? Well, it's myself. Like the scorpion that's sticking itself with his own tail. One day we are saying no more. And when this happens, our life will complete changing. And we understand that we humans, we're so intelligent that we'll create any excuse, any justification to not take action on what we really need to do from our hearts. But the moment that we get up our own way and we embrace, respect, life begins to change. And this is the important thing about knowing that everything is dreamt, knowing that everything is okay. And we don't like something, we can completely change it. But the important thing is to have respect to life.
That's a lot to take in. You have a lot of very deep things that you talk about. For people that are listening that might not be familiar with Toltec Wisdom, can you just tell us a quick definition of what that means?
Yes, Toltec Wisdom. Toltec means artist of the spirit. So it's wisdom of the within. And we're not talking about the wisdom of the Toltecs of thousands of years ago. Like one of my friends asked me, tell me the secret of the Toltecs of thousands of years ago. I replied, I do not know. I was born in 1978, but I can tell you everything I read about them. And the reason we're talking about the Toltecs right now is the artists of today, the artists of now. And of course, I come from a tradition from my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather, my grandmother, my grandparents, and my fathers. But every tradition, it lives in the now. And every tradition is learning of the mistakes, that one makes and doesn't want to make again. So my father made these agreements with himself, that got spread over 37 different languages. And it's based on a book called The Four Agreements. And the first agreement is to be impeccable with your words, to speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or gossip about others. Use the power of your word into the direction of truth and love. And the second one is don't take things personally. Nothing that others do is because of you. What others say and do are a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. And the third agreement it is don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask the questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others and clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And my father's favorite agreement is always do your best, because without this agreement, none of them can have a life. And to do your best, going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy or opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and no regret. And the most beautiful thing is that if you do not judge yourself, nobody else can judge you, and the judgment will not exist in your mind. But when you do your best, you completely give from the gift. And when I was taking these 4 agreements, I look at myself, how can I apply them? And this is when I shared the 5th agreement, and it's to be skeptical, but learn to listen. But not be skeptical in a social position saying I'm more intelligent than anybody else. No, be skeptical of our own negativity. Every time we say, I cannot change, no one loves me, I cannot do this. Don't believe that. Be skeptical of that. Say, okay, I am loved, I can do it, I would change. And sometimes we don't want to change. We make it so complicated because we don't want to change. But when we make it simple, we know that it's just an action that we can completely change our life. So these 5 Toltec agreements, it's just tools to really look into ourselves and change our life. I remember the first time I practiced these 4 agreements, I said to my father, okay, this is a piece of cake, I will practice them, no problem. But then the next day I said, Father, these agreements, they're very complicated. And he said, no, they're simple. The one is complicated is you. Having all these agreements that you cannot be impeccable with your word, that you take everything personally, you make assumptions all the time, and you never do your best. And you support this. Of course, your life is going to be difficult. But when you begin practicing these agreements, you begin knowing that all of our suffering is because we've made agreements of suffering to ourselves, agreement of negativity. And this is something that I begin seeing all over the world. They speak 2 languages, and it's not English or Spanish, no. It's the language of negativity and the language of positivity. If our language is of negativity, everything will be negative around us, We will complain about everything. But if our language is positive, when the negativity comes, we will become immune on it because we will not support it. And this is the difference between different masters of life, many divine conscious teachers. It's because it doesn't mean that they don't feel the negativity. They feel it. They just don't put attention to it any longer. And by putting attention any longer, they embrace positivity and they let go negativity go because they're not going to use suffering against themselves. They're not going to be the scorpion stinging himself with his own tail. But at the contrary, said, okay, I learned from my mistakes. I will not do them again. And that is complete forgiveness. When you learn from your mistakes and you don't want to do them again. And, forgiveness is a big tool in Toltec tradition because it forgives us to be uninspired by our own art, And when we find our own inspiration once again, this is when we come back to life. This is a resurrection. So the Toltec tradition is really based for you to open your heart and enjoy the gift that was given to you. And that was life itself. Heirs to the kingdom of heaven. Because, no one's going to give it to us until we stand up and give it to the love of our life. And, we cannot give what we don't have. Sometimes we try to give it to others, but, in 1 week we'll take it away from them. But when we give what we have, it's because we give it to ourselves. So we say, I love you to somebody. Next week you're not going to be screaming at this somebody, You're going to be totally loving this person and break all the automatics that we have. And even with our automatics, we are perfect. We cannot say we're not perfect because we are perfect and we learn from our mistakes. And this is when the last judgment comes into place. And many people fear the last judgment, that is the end of the world. Well, it's the end of the world that it talks the language of negativity. Because the moment that you begin speaking the language of positivity, you begin to respect yourself, your surroundings, and your life will completely change.
So going back a few minutes, you talked about that one of your life missions is to be yourself. But would you say something different about what your life purpose is?
Well, the life purpose, it is, to romance the love of my life, to make myself happy, because when I'm happy, I'm inspired. And when I'm inspired, I give so much, to my family, to my friends, to my loved ones. And this is the real gift that we have to give, to get ourselves out of the way. So in the teachings, in the classes that I share, I really want to have a heart completely open for everybody to feel their own heart, their own positivities, and especially their own message, because we all are messengers. The question it is, what kind of messenger are we? What is the message that we say to the people we say we love with all our hearts and to ourselves? So if we like the message, continue. But if we don't like our message, then change it. And this is one of the things that I would like to share with everybody. We are artists of our own dream. We're responsible for our own creation. And the moment that we accept this in our life will completely begin to change. So one of the beautiful gifts that I have is a reminder to myself, Jose, you remove yourself from this way of life. Thank you. And every time, sometimes I get a tickle in my brain that I survived, but I'm here. And it's one of the beautiful things that I would like to share with everybody. No matter what negativity we went through, there's always light at the other side of the mountain when we pass all these uncomfortable moments. Because it's uncomfortable. But the moment that we step and, with our power, with our intent and our love and our impeccability of the word, everything begins to change. And just imagine practicing being impeccable with the word every day. And then one day you wake up thinking impeccably. And when you think impeccably, this is one of the most beautiful things because you have personal freedom in your mind, especially clear conscious. And this is what my father gave to me, the clear consciousness, to be responsible for our own actions. And Abraham Lincoln said this beautifully. Abraham Lincoln made a quote saying, I have one religion and one religion only. If I do good, I feel good. And if I do bad, I feel bad. That is my way of life. So when I read this, I said, okay, I completely agree with the president. And it couldn't say it more simpler. So this is why I live by.
Why do you think our lives are so hard?
It's because we were programmed to be addicted to suffering, to make our life, pain whatever it is to be, and especially saying that pain and suffering is normal, but it's not normal. It's not normal. It's pain that we used to, like a normal pain. When someone leaves the earth, we feel an empty, that's normal pain. But the moment that we start using this person's death to hurt ourselves, obsessing with this person, obsessing with this, this action that just happened, it's not normal anymore. And that begins putting poison into our body. And we learn to put poison from the most little simple things. If you notice a person that is being very disrespectful, screaming at somebody, screaming at the waitress or at the waiter, screaming at them, what happens in 1 week? Well, the little kid who's like 5-year-old begin learning this habit and begin screaming at that person, What's going to happen in life? Well, someone's going to say, don't scream at me, and the dance of negativity will begin happening. Or someone who says, you sing so horribly, don't sing, you really sing beautifully, we take that in to judge ourselves. And we don't know what the core of things are, but we are programmed, to take everything personally. And this is one thing that happens. That's why when we wake up one day, we say we want to change our life because we no longer want to live this way. It's because we begin listening to the language of positivity. And the main structure of the language of positivity, the main stand, it is always to be respectful to oneself. And when there is respect, there always will be that standing soil ground that is very potent. Like my partner always says, if somebody doesn't want to be with me, why do I want to be with this person? It's about respect. And Father always says also, if I don't like a group of people, I can just walk away from them. But if I don't like myself, how can I walk away from myself? And here it is when everything begins to change because we begin listening with the point of view of respect. And, this leads us to discipline. And with the discipline, we take the action and we begin to unlearn whatever makes us unhappy. This is why the Toltecs say, in the Toltec tradition, there's nothing to learn but unlearn. So we learn things, that make us not enjoy life. But the moment that we learn this for whatever happens into our life, we begin to respect life and respect ourselves. We know that it doesn't matter in what social level this is happening or in what genre this is happening or in what sex this is happening. This happens no matter what in life it is. So the moment that you have that acceptance, and that responsibility to take care of the law of your life, everything begins to change and no longer blame the outside, I'm happy because of this, I'm happy because of that. We're using and obsessing with the addiction of suffering to hurt ourselves with because we don't help anybody. Taking a pain that's like across the world and we don't do anything to help about it because we're just, complaining about it, not doing anything. But the moment that we hear something happening across the world and we can do something about it, it's no longer about just talking about it. What we can do is about action. And the same thing is about us. With something that is not good in our system, in our way of life, it's about action and remove that uninspiration away from our life. And it doesn't matter who it is, what awareness one has, that negativity will hit home. That's why sometimes we feel this fear that someone else feels completely laughable to us because we don't have that fear. But also somebody may laugh about our own fear because we've been investing all our life. And then when we stop the investment, that is when that gets noticed, and we will remove this from our life, no matter what it is. And like I said before, we humans, we're so intelligent that will create any excuse, any debate to not take action of what we really know inside. But the moment that we know what to do inside, it's no longer about debating. It's no longer about finding the truth outside. It's because we know what the truth is inside. And our life will begin to change because, we are back home.
Right. But really, really amazing content. I can only imagine what it's like to spend an evening with you. How could anyone leave that experience without feeling better about themselves? I don't think they could. Let me ask you about your personal practices. Do you have a daily practice that helps you stay centered and grounded in your belief system?
Yes, I do things that I love to do. Like I like to play music, I like to create art, and I like to write. So I get inspired and just follow wherever life takes me. But I really like to follow what I love to do, because at one point in my life, I begin following what I didn't love to do to prove it to somebody else or for a training. And, I find myself losing myself. So the moment that I begin doing what I love to do, the actions, activities, the work, anything, I really begin having this open heart wherever I go. And one of the beautiful things, for me is really music, because music transports me into many places. That is actually one of my favorite places to meditate, in a rock and roll concert, because, you're singing songs that the strangers also sing, and then you look at the stranger, you're singing together. That's a spiritual experience. And one day I was in Vancouver, and this beautiful Tibetan bowl master, she asked me if she could share a gift to me. And I said, of course, I love it. So she put 15 Tibetan bowls around me and began playing them all at once. And every time she hit one, she went Om, Om. And when I finally opened my eyes and the experience was over, after 45 minutes, I opened my eyes and I looked her face, and she asked me, how did you like the experience? And I replied to her, I loved it so much that it reminded me of an Ozzy Osbourne concert. And the moment that I mentioned Ozzy Osbourne, there was distortion in her face. I said, I don't mean disrespect. Let me explain to you why. And I was once in an Ozzy Osbourne concert after I came back from India in Sai Baba. And I was in the middle of this stadium, and Ozzy Osbourne is singing a song called Mother, I'm Coming Home. And all of a sudden, the chorus begins happening, and the chorus goes, Mother, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. So the home sounded like an Om. And all of a sudden in the concert, I feel this energy from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. And I look around, and there's 65,000 metalheads, rock and roll fans, oming without the awareness they're oming. They're just letting their spirit out of what they love to do. And I tell you, when people love what they love to do, they have a spiritual experience. And when you have a spiritual experience, it's because you're doing what you love to do. You're out of your mind. If it's playing baseball, is it, conducting a radio show, is it leading the country, whatever is inspiring you to do what you love to do, to feel alive. That is what it's all about. So for me, it's about sharing the Toltec and the message of India that I got from my ancestors and my people, teachers, and, and playing music, because, it gets me there. And the beautiful thing about music, is that when you learn to play it for you and not for others, it's just something touches your heart, It's like a bird that sings outside your room and, just singing. You think the bird is thinking that, I hope I'm in key. I hope I'm in the right key. I hope they like me, inside that room. He doesn't care. He just does what the bird is doing. He's just born to sing. And this is exactly what we're born to do as humans too. We're born to create, This is why the important thing, we have an idea. Let's just go out there and do it and manifest it, because that's what we're here to do. Because when you're finished manifesting that, it's like when you finish cleaning up your garden. Because when you clean up your garden after a whole day's work, you just get a hot cocoa, go outside and enjoy your beauty, the beauty that you create. And now imagine the beauty that you can create outside. Imagine the beauty that you can create inside you, especially in your mind. This is why it's so important, to begin practicing being impeccable with our word, to mean what we say, because it will come a point where we'll think impeccably. And this is where the whole source it comes from our brain.
I could really talk with you forever. May I ask you a lightning round of short answer, yes or no questions?
Yes, of course, Angie.
Okay. Do you think passion and purpose are the same things?
Yes.
Do you think everybody has a life purpose?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how important is following your own joy and igniting your life purpose?
10.
Did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose, and do you think somebody needs to?
Yes.
Yes on both?
Yes.
What brings you great, great joy?
Great, great joy. It is finally living the dream that I wanted to live.
If you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, what would you do differently?
Well, I would completely do differently and not repeating the mistakes that I did in the past and continue on forwardly.
Okay. Tell me, what should listeners learn from your life experiences?
That we all are artists and that we're here in life to make a masterpiece of art with our life. No matter what we choose, remember, you are the artist. You are the dreamer. Live the dream instead of the dream dreaming you.
So beautiful. So beautiful. I think there's a poet inside you too, isn't there?
Oh, yes. This is one of the beautiful things of the Toltec. We all are poets because we all feel the love in our hearts. The challenge is to describe it in words, what we feel from our heart, so we translate from the heart to the brain. And this is what we call, in some places they call channeling. But we're not channeling anybody else. We're channeling ourselves.
Channeling ourselves. Are you a big reader of books?
Not too much. I'm more a reader of comic books.
Comic books?
Yes, I love some books I read, but I love more passion with comic books. But I imagine many writers coming together using imagination from theories around the world, history around the world, and putting it together. Because I really believe, with imagination, we can go forward. And it's one of the most important things. And I believe Albert Einstein said this as well. Imagination is more powerful than words. And sometimes when I read those comic books, my imagination goes crazy.
I bet. I'm interested to know what the process is like for you when you're writing a new book. So when you wrote Ripples of Wisdom and My Good Friend the Rattlesnake, how does that work for you? Do you write every day? Do you have a writing partner?
Yes, my writing partner is my partner in life. She's Tammy Hutman, and we both write together. So we just write by inspiration. Like this Ripples of Wisdom, it came up by making quotes. We did quotes for the Facebooks. Then our fans started saying, you should make this a book with pictures, and we did. And then also My Good Friend the Rattlesnake, I began speaking about my own personal life on stage, and a person approached me and says, Jose, you have to share this with the rest of the world, because when you share with this information, you make us feel like you're human. You're not in a pedestal thinking of something that we cannot attain. It's attainable. And when I hear this, we put it into a book. So we really get inspiration, and we're also working on 2 books right now. And they all just come from inspiration. We can be walking in a park, we get an idea, and we take action. That's how it's made, because we can get an idea and not take action, and it will never get made, because there's some stories that I have 10 years of writing, and don't take that action. But the ones that get really done is the ones that just come from nowhere. Get the idea, put it on the paper, make the architect plan, and then build over that. And it's just fun because it's like I said, it's like you're channeling yourself, just getting out of the way. And the best thing to do when this happens is, silence the doubt, silence that perfectionist that wants everything perfect, because that's one thing that comes from our hearts. When everything gets out, then you can edit it and pull it, And this is one of the beautiful things that we share. And I'm very happy that we have 2 new projects coming out. But it's probably going to be a year or so, but we're already making it right now. And this is one of the things that we do. When we start planting the seeds, it takes a few times for it to grow, but it will grow.
So I was just going to ask you, how long does it take you to write a book?
Well, it probably takes us 5 months.
5 months. And what's involved in that 5 months time frame?
First, we put the story. We put the editing, which we channel from our hearts. We put the story in voice. Then after the voice, we put it on paper. Then we edit it on paper and make it fit in so it will go nicely from beginning to end.
Well, we look forward to those other 2 projects that are on the way. Do they have names yet? Do you want to share what they're about?
Well, one project has a name, and it's called Mexica Dreams. It's about stories of old Mexico and shared from the point of view of the Ruiz family.
Can't wait for that.
And the other book is inspired by my puppy that just passed away. And I can't wait to share more about that as we share it in the angel trainings in Encinitas. I'm going to be talking a lot about these upcoming books.
And what was your puppy's name?
He was Yogi.
Yogi. Well, the best to him, I'm sure. And your words, he's off to his next chapter.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we already have a new puppy named Little Jogi that's, sharing all the love, because it was something beautiful that when our Jogi just passed away, we had all this love that was just given to him, and he, give it back. And then we feel like, he went back home, so he's in a better place where we have all this love to give. So now it was like feeling, where to put this love? So this little angel, the little messenger came in to a picture in the computer, and I said, okay, this is it. So I can finally feel the love flowing, all the love that we have sometimes that we don't give it to others because it passed away, because it becomes like a waterfall that becomes like a dam and a pressure. We don't give it anymore. And we have to give it, We cannot stop giving this love. And the moment that we feel like give this love completely, that's what we're meant to do. And this is the best thing we can say. Thank you. Thank you to Yogi, for all the life that he touched me. And for me, that was like an attained divine spirit, in the manifest puppies are. Because, people have this imagination growing up, they will find the Buddha or talk to, to the divine master, But, it's not in the past or a human form that was in the past. It's with nature. And when I look into the puppy's eyes, it's just the most unconditional love, because just look at them. When they go into a room, they just are wiggling their tail. If somebody doesn't give them love, they don't take it personal. They just walk to another person that will give them love, but they're always giving love. And this, the way to be. And I'm grateful for Yogi for teaching me this.
Very nice. Very nice. So just in closing, one more time, tell us how people can learn more about you.
Yes, you can learn more about me in the YouTube videos under Don Jose Ruiz. And for the events that my family is doing is under MiguelRuiz.com. And we also have a website called The Universe of Now, when we have different artists sharing positive inspiration and quotes and pictures and book. And also I have a music band called The Circle of Shadows, and you can check out online. And it's about just open heart music.
Oh, beautiful. What was the middle one, the middle website for sharing quotes?
It's called theuniverseofnow.com.
Got it. So if people have questions for you, I'm sure they can find a way to send you a message on MiguelRuiz.com.
Yes, on MiguelRuiz.com, and also on Facebook on the fan page, because now with technology we can hear the questions directly, and it goes faster.
Okay, great. We'll put a link to all of those things on our show notes. It's been my pleasure talking to you. As I mentioned, I could talk to you for hours. Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to mention?
Oh, I just want to express my gratitude to you, Angie, for this message of love that you share with everybody. And thank you for having me on this show. And I would like to be again on this show because, like you said, there's more to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about, so we'll make sure to get that scheduled. Thank you very much. I'm also very grateful to have you and to get to spend time with you, and maybe I will meet you in Encinitas.
Yes, for sure. We'll make this intent. Thank you, Angie.
That's right. Okay, have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Life Purpose Advisor podcast. We know that your time is limited and your life is busy, so we thank you so much for joining us and spending this hour with us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. And if you'd like more help in finding your own life purpose, please visit us at www.lifepurposeadvisor.com. Have a wonderful day.